Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome to a very special double episode of 2 Minutes to Review. I'm Matt.
And I'm Zach.
You clicked on the picture. You obviously know what you're in for. You're in for a double take of the Gorillaz. Timing actually couldn't be more perfect for doing this episode. We kind of were talking a little bit about, doing one album from the Gorillaz, and then they just announced Song Machine. So we said, you know what? Screw it.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's like we didn't have enough time to just fully take in the fact that Demon Days is now 15 years old, which even just saying that out loud is kind of just makes me feel really, really old. And I know I like to make
feel good.
No, it's not
feel good.
It's not feel good. Ironically, it's the album. In case you need to remember what Demon Days is, it's the Gorillaz sophomore album, and it features genre-bending hits like Feel Good Inc. And it really is the album that proved that Damon, Albarn, and Jamie Hewlett's virtual band was more than just a concept, and it really took the band further. And then, as Matt mentioned, literally right as we were about to revisit this album, boom, Song Machine Season 1 Strange Times was announced. And if you're not really familiar with this, it's less of a standard album and more of a soundtrack to this Song Machine web series that the Gorillaz was doing. And it saw them do singles and videos with a wide range of artists, like everyone from Robert Smith to The Cure to Beck, St. Vincent to Elton John, Schoolboy Q, and Peter Hook. And with that in mind, I say we start off with Demon Days.
That sounds good to me.
The older albums of the two. So, Matt, how about let me know when you're ready?
All right. Let's do it.
3, 2, 1, go.
This album, if it was released today, it would be a hipster staple album. With its underproduced electronic vibe, it would be more of a staple on radio, on alt radio today, more so than it was when it was originally released. Tracks like Last Living Soul and Dirty Harry really kind of illustrate this. Now, that's not a knock on this album at all, but it really is a testament to how timeless this album is, because they're not trying to make the technology the forefront of the album. They're really kind of just blending it with real musicianship, which is what makes it possible for this album to sound as good as it does right now, and it feel very underproduced. Now, where the group starts to fall apart, it's when they're trying something. When some groups actually fall apart is when they're trying something new on an album. When they tried something new on this album with tracks like Feel Good Inc., All Alone, and Dare, they sound really good. And this actually might be where Robin Thicke found inspiration in his song for Blurred Lines. So if you're looking for something that really kind of just blurs boundaries and where everybody tries to fit bands into a box nowadays, this album shows that you can still blur lines and blow minds 15 years later.
I am blown away that you were able to find a way to inject Robin Thicke into a review about the Gorillaz, but that's just my so time is locked in, but what would your star ranking be?
4.5.
4.5.
Yeah. There's some songs on here that really don't catch me. Some things that just don't work for me on here, but all in all, it's just like a little blip on the radar. It's a great album. If you haven't listened to Demon Days in a while or at all, go back and listen to this thing. And the reason why I threw Robin Thicke in here, because when I heard Dare again for the first time in many years, it sounded like something, and I couldn't put my finger on what it sounded like. And then I started kind of just going, where have I heard that before? And it's Robin Thicke and his song Blurred Lines. Like, it took me a good 15 minutes to find out where the hell I was coming up with this. And when I listened to it side by side, it's like, holy shit, this is where he pulled his inspiration from, or just kind of sampled it or lifted it or whatever.
I mean, maybe the Marvin Gaye estate would disagree with that, but
yeah, whatever.
All right, my turn now.
All right, Zach, are you ready?
Yeah.
All right. 3, 2, 1, go.
So many songs on this album. I mean, including Oh Green World, El Mana Mana, and Dare are just great examples of the type of dark pop music that was coming out of the UK in the 2000s. It's a sound that combined alternative grit with cinematic suspense that many acts around the world still today are trying to imitate, but are just coming up short. One moment you'll find yourself bopping to trip hop dance influenced songs like Dirty Harry. Then the next you're feeling at ease with the psychedelic pop sounds of a song like Don't Get Lost in Heaven. As trippy sounding as the album is, and at times you can find yourself going in a million different directions within a single song, its greatest achievement, what makes it so unique and still timeless, is that it still sounds like a cohesive piece of work. In a way, it plays like the soundtrack to an indescribable hallucination that starts off as a nightmare, like the song's Last Living Souls, but then ends in the most fulfilling, uplifting dream, like the title track. So it really is a timeless record from start to finish that takes you on a journey that you just still find yourself fulfilled.
All right. We have a time. And the star rating is?
I'm going to go 4.
Okay.
It's one of those albums that I don't constantly go back to, but every time I do, I'm like, wow, that really was good. And to your point, it could come out today and maybe be an even bigger hit, but you can hear how much influence that album has had on so many acts today, both in alternative and even in pop music. It really did change as to what you think pop radio could sound like at a certain point. And it just sounds like it's an example how, the UK produces some of the most influential music in a weird way.
Yeah. And I don't doubt that at all for a second. I mean, to me, this album, I think it came out in a weird period for alternative music because you didn't have the 90s alternative that we had. It wasn't the Smashing Pumpkins. It wasn't, some Pearl Jam later on. It wasn't Bush. That was a very defined period for alternative music. Now, when you're starting to get into the 2000s, and even like midway through the 2000s, it kind of was a mashup of a whole bunch of different things that you just couldn't really define. And hell, trying to define this album, good luck with that. It's electronic pop, grime, electric. I can't define it. Like I can't find any words to put to it. It's just there's so many different things that this album did right that it's like, okay, it's great from a pop standpoint of like Feel Good Inc. That song was all over the radio no matter what genre it was. But then when you get into like Last Living Soul and Dirty Harry, you're what do I call this?
Mm-hmm.
What do I call?
I'm glad you mentioned about like the 90s alt rock scene because, that's in the 90s you thought of alternative rock to be the guitar heavy stuff. But then an album like Demon Days comes along and really calls out it made you go, no. Oh, you think that's alternative? No. That's rock. This is really alternative. This is literally mashing up every single genre and creating something that should not be mainstream sounding, and yet somehow it is because it takes all the best elements out of everything you like and finds a way to bring it together. And you hear that now, and I love listening to SiriusXM. There's 2 channels that I find myself going to a lot, which is Alt Nation, which is of course the current alternative scene, and that is just a wide range of like stuff that like literally you would think would be a pop song. Well, because it started off in Alt Nation and then became pop, like Billie Eilish. And then you listen to the channel Lithium, which is like the 90s, like right, old school, like alt rock. And it's just kind of amazing to see how that genre has evolved and has encompassed what the title alternative really should be in a way. But you know what? Those are just our opinions. Who really cares about our opinions? You know what I really care about, Matt?
You care about losing to me.
I care about finding out that I gave a longer review than you did. That's what I care about. Tough guy.
Well, your time, Mr. Zach.
What was my time? Thanks for letting me ask you.
I'm going to tell you whether you want to know or not.
Oh.
It's 1 minute and 23 seconds.
Ooh. Well, Matt, you suck. You were 1 minute and 24 seconds.
Yes.
You beat me by 1 freaking second. Screw you.
Winning's winning. It doesn't matter if it's by an inch or a mile. I feel like I've said this before.
You're so lucky that we're doing this virtually and not in person. Oh, that's too sad. But you know what? What's nice about this episode is that I have an actual chance to redeem myself.
You're not really good at this game.
No,
I don't think so.
I'm redeeming myself with my review of Song Machine.
All right, so I guess you want to go first.
No, you know what? You won the last review. I think it's only fair that you get to go first. So let me know.
This?
Yeah, I'm not, but I think it's only fair. But you know what? And this only gives me more time to just really get ready to kick your butt. Don't call it a comeback. Well, hopefully you can call it a comeback, but don't call it a comeback. Anyway, Matt, are you ready?
Count it down.
3, 2, 1. Woo-hoo.
So what I really didn't like about this album, and yes, Zach alluded to it in the intro a little bit, that this was more of a soundtrack to a web series, but it seems like this album is all over the place from the Gorillaz. Song Machine Season 1, Strange Times, just really didn't do it for me on any real level. You're all over the place, and the Gorillaz really just don't sound like the Gorillaz, except for on like a couple tracks like Valley of the Pagans, which featured Beck, Chalk Tablet Towers, which had St. Vincent on it, The Pink Phantom, which had Elton John, and everything else to me was just very forgettable. There was just a couple of different times in the album where I heard some songs like Momentary Bliss that I was thinking, this reminds me that this could be on like a video game like Hotline Miami, which was like a Grand Theft Auto kind of take, which was very much so more gory. If you've never played that game, go play it. It's awesome, but I digress. And this album for me just was a whole bunch of the Gorillaz just being all over the place. Don't get me wrong, the production value on the album is great. You just don't feel that special vibe on this album like you do with other Gorillaz albums, especially, listening to this and Demon Days kind of close together. You really feel that this album just isn't the Gorillaz at the top of their game.
All right. The time is locked in. What is your score ranking?
1.5.
Interesting. Well,
yeah.
Do you think I agree? Do you think I disagree?
I think you disagree.
Let's find out.
I think you wholeheartedly disagree. But I digress once again. So
count me down.
All right, Mr. Feelgood, you ready?
No, I'm always ready.
3, 2, 1, go.
To be honest, I really struggled listening to this album. Like, really struggled. And there's moments on this album like Momentary Bliss and Pac-Man that have their moments. But as a whole, this album just lacks a level of excitement or innovation, to the point that I actually felt like it was a chore just to get through each song, let alone the entire album. And typically when I hear that the Gorillaz are collaborating with people like St. Vincent or Elton John, I automatically get excited, but their presence wasn't even enough to boost my interest. And even as Matt alluded, it doesn't really sound like it's the Gorillaz on top of their game. In fact, it really sounds like it's just them going, all right, hey, St. Vincent, let's do this song. It kind of sounds like something you do. Hey, Beck, this is a song that kind of sounds like you would do this. Let's just do this one off. Hey, Peter Hook, we love New Order. Let's just do this. It doesn't feel like a cohesive album. And it ultimately sounds exactly like what it is on the surface. It's really just a glorified mixtape of singles featuring some cool collaborators that were released over the course of a year. That's only connection is that it involves the Gorillaz. But let's be honest, even that can be a little questionable as you listen to this album.
All right, we got a time. And your star rating?
I'm pretty sure that this is the first time I'm going to give it a 1.
Yeah.
That I've given a 1 during the series. Now, and it's funny, as I was listening to this, I was thinking back to when we reviewed Deftones' latest album, Ohms. And to get ready for that album, I actually, because that was a band that I kind of, was on the fence about. And I revisited White Pony and I revisited Diamond Eyes. And it actually not only got me excited for Ohms, but actually in a weird way made me appreciate Ohms a little bit more. I think I don't want to say that revisiting Demon Days made me dislike this album even more, but it definitely didn't help because you listen to the innovation. I mean, as we discussed, I mean, it really redefined what alternative actually was. And you listen to that and then you compare it to this where it's just like, it just felt half-assed. It really did.
You pretty much hit the nail on the head when you said that it was a chore to listen to this, because it really was. There was so many times when I got maybe a minute into this song, I'm like, is this over yet? Because this is not good.
Yeah, and even the good songs, I'm just like, this could have been a minute shorter.
The Beck song was really the only one that I was kind of juiced to listen to all the way through, because that song, at least to me, felt like it was a Beck song with the Gorillaz flavor on it, and it felt good. No pun intended.
No pun intended. I was about to say. And you know what? You just said it right there, too. It wasn't, this is a Gorillaz album with cool collaborators, which I kind of said it was. It really was, hey, this could have been a Beck song. It just so happened to be on the Gorillaz album. Like, it didn't feel like a Gorillaz album. It felt like what it was. Keep in mind, Momentary Bliss, which is the one song I actually kind of got excited by, that came out in January of this year. This has been a year-long, series.
Yeah.
And you listen to it and you're like, yeah, this really doesn't sound like an album. This just sounds like we want to release a vinyl album, but, we can't just have 2 or 3 songs. Like, let's just put all these in. It's a glorified B-side almost.
Yeah, it really does feel like they had this stuff kind of hanging around for a long time, and they just decided to put it together on an album just to get stuff out there. Now, I really, really, really wonder if, when everybody else's reviews come out on this album, if they're going to continue to go down this road, because they do call this season 1.
Well, they already announced that they're going to be doing season 2. And,
so they did announce that.
Not officially announced, but they pretty much said in interviews like, yeah, season 2 can come out as soon as 2021, which I guess in today's day and age, and when people aren't really necessarily consuming albums the same way they do, maybe this just makes more sense for the Gorillaz, but creatively it doesn't.
No.
And it's a shame.
No, they need to just stick to doing Gorillaz things.
Yeah. But you know what? It doesn't really matter what we think. You know what really matters?
They already know. It's the times.
The sweet, sweet redemption that I'm about to have.
Yeah. Okay.
Matt, you ready to find out your time?
Go for it.
You came in at 1 minute and 23 seconds.
Nice. Because, Zach, your time was 1 minute and 18 seconds. Once again, you're not good at this game.
Screw you.
Boom.
Screw
2
you.
2 for 2.
I mean, this game doesn't really matter, does it?
Yeah, it does.
No. But you know what actually also matters? Your opinion, fellow listeners.
Yes.
Do you agree with our thoughts on Demon Days, or do we just kind of have too fond of memories of it? Do you think we're way off of Song Machine? Let us know what you think of both albums, or both of our thoughts on each album, on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, at Epic Footnote. Also follow us on YouTube, where in addition to hearing awesome podcast episodes like this, you'll get some really cool exclusive video content. Also at Epic Footnote. Thanks so much for listening, and we hope you join us for another episode real soon.
Feel good.